Few conversations are as personal as how we define ourselves. In this episode of The Bridge, LGBTQ plus women and former LGBTQ plus women discuss identity, sexuality, change, freedom, and what it means to live authentically, even when the journey looks different for everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Da. Welcome to The Bridge. Welcome, ladies. I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourselves, and you can just say what you identify as.
Okay, starting with me. I'm Chrissy. I am a transsexual woman. I call myself a ladyboy because it's cuter, though.
I'm Bella. I just identify as a person. Like, I know I'm a woman, but what do you mean by the what? You know, like, person.
I'm Anne. I identify as non-binary, so I do go by they, them. Otherwise, I just identify as queer, generally.
Hello, I'm Elise Atkinson, and I identify as a beautiful Black trans woman.
My name is Zyla Melody. I am a Christian, and I'm also formerly LGBTQ.
Hi, I'm Matrix. I'm former LGBTQ, and I'm a woman.
Hi, my name is Monet Beltran, and I'm a Christian woman, a former LGBTQ.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I am a Christian, and I'm former LGBTQ and acidic.
Hi, my name is Tyler. I'm a woman, Christian, former LGBTQ.
Thank you, ladies. And the first prompt is, you can't really leave the LGBTQ plus community. Okay, anyone can share.
The way I see it when it comes to like leaving, I do think you can technically leave, as in you're not a part of it, you know, but talking with a lot of different people, and you know, maybe this is not others' experience here, but they still struggle with those thoughts. And even like leaving, it's a very conscious action, and it's one that you have to take with a lot of strength. And so I guess if you mean leave as in like disidentify, yeah, you can do that. But I think those thoughts and those feelings never actually leave.
I think what we're talking about is a difference with orientation and identity. I understand that, you know, some of us will have those struggles with same-sex attraction for the rest of our lives, and then some will never even identify. So yeah, for sure, I think you could leave the identity of LGBTQ and still struggle with same-sex attraction. But like, as for myself, I left the identity and I became a woman of God, a Christian.
I didn't know how to answer that, but yeah, like, and the question, it was community, right? Like the LGBT community. So I think like, even though I don't identify as like queer anymore, I do still have queer thoughts. So I do feel like I'm still a part of the community in that way.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you mean by like leaving the community, not to be like super pedantic about it, but like there's like, you can always leave, but dealing with those thoughts and dealing with like, I mean, for you, I'm sure it feels like a struggle in a sense.
Not
but
really,
like,
it's just something that I do observe.
Yeah. But it's like you still have, even if you don't identify as it, I think like the important part of like calling it a community is that there's people who have similar traits who are treated a specific way in society because of those traits. And like when you leave, like I'm sure you identify as a straight woman, like you're not treated in the world as an LGBTQ member. You're not treated that way anymore. Whereas like if you were in those communities and in those spaces, like you're not a part of that anymore. You don't experience that. But you still have, I'm sure in the past, experienced what it's like to be in those communities and the discrimination that comes along with that, I'm sure.
Not necessarily, because I was never really involved in the LGBTQ. I never wore Pride. I never went to Pride. I never did and where I'm from.
You're never super open.
So yeah, I wasn't. And then like maybe I dabbled with it a little bit. Like I'm sure people like speculated I was open enough like to the fact that, you know, I was doing things that people were like drawing their own, but I never actually like came out as bi or gay or anything like that.
Because I think, and I think for you, that's probably pretty easy. You look straight. Like, I'll be honest, you look straight.
Which is fine. I think some people tell me I still get gay vibes.
Really?
You know?
That's crazy. So. I think, like, the thing is we can pretend, like, okay, people in the LGBTQ plus community just look like everybody else. That's not true. I don't like to pretend like that's true. Like, there's people who walked in, and immediately I had the thought, like, you're on my side. Like you kind of look like, maybe you look like this, but in my head I immediately, and I think we all do that, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. It's how you treat people afterwards, like after you make that assumption about them. And so I think, like, for you it might be different because, like, you left, and that is your decision, and you probably still get treated pretty similar to how you've always been treated.
I don't know. I don't know that I would agree with that I get treated with how I've always been treated. I don't know right now.
So do you feel like you've been treated better, or I don't understand?
I feel like I get treated poorly by both sides, and maybe that's why I have empathy for both sides.
So you feel like you're treated poorly on the straight side because you're a woman, or do you feel like you're treated poorly on the gay side because...
I don't know how to answer that. I just want to say that I don't really ever... I when I first, was gay, I guess, it was because people had told me I looked like a boy. I had been misgendered, and there was multiple things happening. So that shaped my identity to begin with. So I would associate that with a negative because it made me feel like I was not being right, if that makes sense.
So you felt dysphoric about it?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say I was treated poorly by any community necessarily. I would just experience that with it felt negative. But I don't associate that with why I ended up in a homosexual relationship. I feel like I was with another person that had probably had similar experiences. So I feel like my homosexual relationships were more about genuine human compatibility, which is probably where I'd relate to you more, just like human connection, and it doesn't really matter about gender. It's just we understand each other or we don't. But I feel like I've probably experienced more prejudice from the heterosexual community actually for my sexuality, and because I'm just in general I express my sexuality more so, whether that's hetero or homo. It's just and that probably has a lot to do with where I'm from too. Being from Texas, it was more shameful to be sexual at all.
So you mentioned that you can just look at someone and tell that they're in the community, but speaking of what she's saying, what if you're wrong? And I have known people where they were not, and they were assumed to be, and that actually affected them greatly.
I mean, that's kind of the same way as being wrong about if someone, speaks English on the street. I can walk up to anyone on the street and ask them for directions. But if I'm just wrong and they don't speak English and I just go about my way, I say sorry. And I think for some people that will be hurtful. And I don't know why it would be hurtful to be assumed to be a part of the community. I think it's important for people who are part of communities to have ways to identify each other. And I think for a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community, part of that identity comes along with being more open, more expressive, more, not to say straight people aren't artistic, but a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community are more open about their creative sides, and I think that shows. And I don't think there's anything wrong with making assumptions.
It's hurtful to me. It hurts me a lot, especially because I'm a model and I'm a rave DJ. People ask me what my fucking pronouns are all the time, and
it's hurtful to ask your pronouns?
That's what she's saying.
That's what I'm saying. So it's just annoying to have to, I don't know, I feel like I should let you know rather than be asked because our piercings match, or because I have tattoos, or because I do something that inspires you, or you're interested in something that I'm interested in or something. I just, I've worked so hard to get to this age where I love who I am as a woman and stuff. I don't feel like I need to explain that. And so
is asking for pronouns making you
it's not let's not reduce it to just the pronouns. It's even my sexuality. Obviously people think I'm lesbian, women find me attractive. That's kind of why I even fell into it in the first place. And I did love my exes too, there were real genuine emotions. I thought I was going to live with them forever. I thought happily ever after and all that. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel especially now that I have a husband, and I have so much respect for him, and for myself, I feel if you're non-binary or a lesbian or, whatever, you can communicate that, and we shouldn't put that on everybody all the time,
What do you mean put it on?
Oh yeah, because people come to me all the time and ask me, And I feel like, why are you
I
asking
think it's
me?
just weird.
You know, and I kind of want to say, I get what you're saying, like, completely. Like, maybe not in the exact same way, but, like, when someone asks me, like, oh, what are your pronouns? Like,
Right.
to me, what I hear is, oh, you clocked me.
Right.
Oh,
right.
you, like, clocked me
It's
as
on both
trans.
sides.
Like,
It's not about, oh, I have a problem with being non-binary. It's like, because I'm not, it bothers me. And if I was non-binary and someone said she, her, that would bother me too. Like, it's on both sides. And I think, like, just allow people to say it instead of assuming everyone is just like you because you see something of yourself in them.
And, like,
that's the problem for me.
if we're going to be very honest, people don't ask everyone their pronouns. Like, some people will say, oh, well, I ask everyone. It's like, no, you don't.
Exactly.
You
They
do not
ask people who
everyone.
they think. And that's what I'm like,
Yeah.
I know what I look like. I know I look androgynous, you know?
I believe there's
So-
a culture that's being formed in regard to this, that the pronouns and titles and identities are becoming above even seeing and hearing somebody. And so it was almost like this pendulum swing where it's like, can you please ask me how I identify? Or like, hey, please just let me be. And so it's like gotten pretty extreme. Like even for me, the intimidation of having this conversation was, man, I hope I get the language right. But most of all, I hope you hear my heart, and I hope you see my heart. And that was my biggest thing, because I see you, and I want to know you. And I've been waiting for this moment to talk to the LGBTQ community, which I lived majority of my life in. And so I think that like what you're addressing is the way it's made you feel, and I love to hear how it's made you feel. But sometimes I have this intimidation of, man, if I don't identify them the right way, it seems hateful, and that's not like my heart. And so I
don't think you're hateful. I think you called me she, her a few times, but I don't. I think there's an overreaction.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is like you don't get upset when people assume you're a woman, and I think that you probably everyone here you assumed was also a woman, which I think the title of the video includes like the name woman or something like that. But you don't get upset at those assumptions. You assume everyone else here is a woman. You call everyone else she, her. But like I feel like if someone just corrects you, then that's fine. I wouldn't get offended ever if someone asked me.
But that's you.
oh, she,
Like,
her.
just because you get offended or don't get offended, I don't, like,
But
that has nothing to do
I'm
with me.
confused. What's offending?
I already
about it?
addressed it.
I think it really boils down to intent, because I have been on people were like, oh, what are your pronouns? And I'd be like, what you mean? Like, obviously, like, it's she and her. But then I'm like, people are like, well, no, because, your voice is deeper, or you have these features, and I was able to tell you were trans. I didn't mean to offend you. I just wanted to make sure I respected you. So I think it's all about intent.
Yes.
So I don't think somebody being like, may I know your pronouns? Because like you said, you are aware that you look more androgynous. So some people may think, you're going to be on this side, but now you're on this side, So it's like I'm trying to find a better way to respect you. So I feel like sometimes you just have to see the intent.
I can see the
versus-
intent too.
I
'Cause,
think
like,
so.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I can tell when somebody's like genuinely curious, because even like a younger like teen or something asking me and they're like inspired, like that's happened. I can tell when someone's like genuinely curious versus like someone insulting me and calling me trans as an insult. Like people have done
Does
that.
that offend
There's
you?
a difference when someone's coming and asking me, hey, are you trans? Versus like telling me I am because I said I left the LGBT community. 'Cause that's happened before. I've shared my story online. People have insulted me. It's like, oh, well, you look like a lesbian. You don't know what you are. And they do that too. So it's like both sides. You know what I mean? It's even if I was on the LGBT community, like let's say someone assumed I was straight or something, like I feel like that would be equally offensive if you're like living a certain lifestyle, you see yourself as a certain way, your peers see you as a certain way, and then like people are constantly like harassing you thinking because you're overly feminine or whatever that they think you're something that you don't think you are. And I don't have to deal with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
But we also gotta navigate in the way that the world is. So we know,
Right.
we know
The
the
binary.
norms. We know the norms, and we know that what's going on today is people ask pronouns because people are becoming more socially aware of trans people, non-binary people. So sometimes it's just the way the world is right now. Even though we don't have a perfect society yet that can coddle what we're feeling, it's just like it is what it is right now. Because some people are gonna be like, at the end of the day, you're still a man. And I'm be like, and that's your opinion. But
I'm with you.
So it's
I'm
like,
with you.
yeah, but I'm like, so it's just, but
Yeah.
I get what you're
I
saying.
get to decide
but
whether I
yeah.
want to opt in or opt out. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm
I think
here.
it's a projection that we put on each other. Like, you mentioned earlier, like we should be able to tell, or I can tell.
I didn't say should, but.
Okay, yeah. And so it's like, oh, you could tell. And I think the assumption and also the projection could be like, it's a sensitive thing. And so it's like, even like, addressing and communicating and having relationship with LGBTQ, I'm trying to avoid projecting and I'm trying to avoid the assumption. And it's like, I want to see you and hear from you. And in regards to language, like I'm learning too. And as culture evolves, society evolves, the language continues on to shift. And it has become confusing. Like, I mean, sometimes I'm like, I'm kind of confused of who's what and what's who. But know my heart, like I just literally don't know. And so I just hope they can hear my heart, because if I say something wrong, it might be like hateful and then they're offended. And it's just like this high sensitivity of offense.
But that's when asking questions come in.
Yeah. And so I love you sharing that earlier, like, just talk to me about it. And I love that. Like, hey, let's just talk. And like earlier we got to talk and we've had great conversations. And so I am so thankful for us to have this talk, because I think it brings clarity, just because of the culture and society that's evolving is not in a place of love and respect. It's in a place of assumption, projection, and as well as you need to affirm my belief system. And that's not the right heart posture I believe that we all are not for,
And the next prompt is, gender is a social construct. Some yeses and some nos. Okay, I haven't heard much from you. Why don't you go ahead and
Yeah,
share?
I think that gender is a category in the sense of identifying with maybe commonality more so, whereas like sex is a difference for biological. So I think gender is something that can shift based on roles and work and different identities. So I think that it's definitely socially constructed.
So I was pretty much the only person on the side that did disagree. I think with the whole gender as a social construct, I kind of think it's very reductive to trans people in general to say that gender is a social construct. Is gender expression a social construct? 100%. However, at the end of the day, humans and mammals are born inherently knowing things about their birth sex. And, if I was put on an island never having met another person, I would feel inherently bad about myself because I have gender dysphoria. We've done brain scans on trans women, and trans women's brains are not aligned to male or female. We're our own separate whole thing, and same with trans men. And so to say gender is a social construct, I feel like takes away that very medical reality and kind of reduces it to, well, if it's a social construct, why not just stay a man? If it's a social construct, why not just stay a woman?
I think because how we perceive men and women, that's the social contract. That has changed for every century. I feel like what a man does or a man wears is different from what a woman wears.
But wouldn't that just fall under gender expression?
No, it's a performative thing.
And I'd like to insert something from the thing that I thought was getting overlooked with what you said about people in the queer community being a little more artistic or creative. Like something that I think is really powerful is, the opportunity to express oneself is a privilege. And so if you see a little girl walking down the street and she's in boys' shoes and you think, oh, she's a tomboy, or, that might be because those were the shoes that were passed down to her. And so I think that's when it becomes harmful in society, when we're labeling people and putting stereotypes on them and we're not actually seeing them for who they actually are.
But even with that, you wouldn't, if you see a little girl passing down the street, all you can do is assume, because when are you going to get that conversation, And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
So it's that sounds nice, but the reality is you're going to assume.
Well, it's less about the assumption itself. Like if I see somebody walking down the street in a nun outfit, I'm going to assume that person's not just dressing up for Halloween. I'm going to assume that's a nun. And I don't think there's anything wrong with me assuming that's a nun. I think that's perfectly normal.
I do.
You think
I think it's harmful.
You think it's wrong to assume that person's a nun?
I think we should live with more open minds. And
if they're dressed as a nun, why would?
Well, I'll give you a very real example. I was at Target 2 weeks ago, and the guy was in a pirate outfit. And when he walked in, the wind blew, and I said, "Wow, you were rocking that outfit." And he goes, "Oh, I was at my uncle's. No, he's an uncle. It's a nephew. I was at my nephew's school." He was like, "I was just doing it for the kids." So it was a pirate costume. It wasn't his actual outfit.
Because usually people aren't pirates.
Yeah, and did you have bad intent behind it?
I just gave the compliment.
You said you tried to give a compliment, right? So the intent behind it was good.
I didn't make an assumption whether or not that's actually how he dresses or whether it was a costume. I just said you're rocking
you liked
that
the
outfit.
costume. He told you what it was for.
But because I initiated the conversation, had I just stayed in my head and thought, "Wow, that guy looks like a pirate."
But you're not going to initiate a conversation.
Is there something bad?
I'm trying to understand what the negative.
So she's saying, I think what she's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you did not assume he was a pirate. You just said you like his outfit.
I did observe that he looked like a pirate.
But you
my
thought
head.
he looked like a pirate.
I did
Who
think
knows
that he
why he
looked like
dressed
a
like
pirate.
that? It could be his job. It could be whatever.
Yeah,
And I think
I-
that's what
exactly.
he's
I
just
didn't
like,
think-
The assumption, it's like you're filling in gaps that aren't like that you might feel like are true, but like you don't have the authority to decide that
I
for
observed my
that
thought,
person.
but I didn't confirm
you know what I
it
mean?
for myself.
I think
Right.
I think that's really funny coming from like, because I assume all of you are heterosexual now.
I don't identify with sex. I identify with my religion
Okay.
or identity in Christ. So I don't identify with any type of
Okay.
sexuality.
Okay, but this is an assumption. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that everybody,
Elise.
right? I know. Okay, well, but I just think that in society, you know, heterosexual people, the norm, have assumed a lot about trans people, gay people, non-binary people. They assume your pronouns, they assume, and some will even know and still go against what it is. And so I feel like it's just funny how everybody's like, don't assume anything, but yet that is the same thing
That's
projected
what I'm
onto
trying
us.
to like
So
shine light
I'm saying,
towards.
but I'm saying so,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's an issue to assume as long as the intent is, I'm trying to respect you. I assumed that was wrong of me, but I'm trying to get a better understanding of how to respect you. And I feel like people don't walk around typically as pirates. So if you see a pirate, man with a pirate hat, you're gonna say, oh, he's a pirate. If you see somebody in a nun outfit, you're gonna say, oh, you're a nun. If you see somebody in thigh-high boots and a leather coat with 30-inch blonde weave, you're gonna say, she.
You know, I actually kind of want to bring this back onto something because you had said that you could just tell. And I was like, you know, when you said that, my first thought was, oh shit, like what surgery do I need now? Like, I mean, I already know.
That was me when I was 19.
But it's like, it's very understandable when a trans woman is assumed as a man that she gets upset. And so I feel like that same courtesy, it goes the exact opposite way with cis people. Dysphoria at the
That's
end of
what
the day.
that's
But
what I'm
don't you
trying to
think
bring
that's
up.
projection?
How is that projection?
It's not projection. I'm not responsible for those that have hurt you in the past. You know what I mean? Like, let's say that someone had hurt you and assumed something about you and your identity that was false, and you had a bad experience about that. I deserve that same courtesy that you're also expecting from the world. That goes for everybody. That's what we're saying. We're not saying that it belongs to one side or the other side. What I'm trying to say, and what I'm sure everyone else is trying to say, is that we all experience the same thing, and we put that assumption on everybody, and it makes it uncomfortable for everybody. It's not, you know, because I'm like, what do you mean by, oh, I can tell when you're straight? You know, like, what does that mean?
Well, what does it mean to assume someone's a nun? It's just
Exactly.
you
You know
assume
what?
something about the typical culture that they're a
No.
part of. But I think that the thing is, and I don't get assumed, or I don't get offended. I used to get called he, him, because people thought I dressed a lot like a boy. And there's ways to dress like a boy. There is. And I'm not going to deny that. I feel like that's reality. There's ways to dress like a girl. There's ways to dress like a boy. I never assumed you were trans, by the way. I just assumed you were a woman. You look like she, her. I'm just going to make that assumption and go about my day. And if you correct me, then that's fine. I think that that's perfectly fine. If somebody is sitting in a bus driver's outfit, sitting in the front seat of the bus, I'm going to assume that's the bus driver. And I don't have any problem with that. But I think that you have a unique experience, and I think I also have a unique experience where like people have assumed a lot about our genders because of the way that we look. And I think that for us it might be more sensitive, and for trans people it might be more sensitive. Whereas like if you're a straight heterosexual woman and you dress feminine, people are just going to assume that you're she, her and move about their day. But I think people have gotten to the point where they are trying to be more sensitive. They're trying to be more cognizant of people's identities. And I hope that you don't, I mean, you said harassment. I hope that you don't take people just asking your pronouns as
That's not
harassment.
what, I didn't say just people asking me.
No,
Like,
I know. I heard you. No, I get you, because you said something about them berating you, telling you not really your identity or whatever. I think that's wrong too. And I think there's a line, like, you can be respectful, you can ask someone's pronouns.
I actually want to know what you were going to say before, you know, everyone said, because you had a question for me, or you guys, when you were saying to me, yeah. So I actually do want to know.
What was I saying? I'm sorry. You gotta remind me.
I was saying that, like, you know, it's understandable when a trans woman gets upset for being called a man. And so I understand why a cis woman would be upset being asked if she's a man too, even if it's a genuine question.
No, I get that. I get why they be mad, but I'm saying, I said I felt the same way at first when people, even still today, but like I said, I have characteristics, I have a deeper voice, I have a stronger jawline. So, and the fact of the matter is, some people can tell I'm trans because I'm trans.
So let me ask you this: what would you want people to refer to you as?
she, her, and hers.
So would you like people to refer to you as a trans woman, a woman, or what exactly would be your preference?
I don't mind if you call me a woman or a trans woman.
Okay.
You know,
so you wouldn't mind, but are there some people who would mind?
I'm pretty sure, but I can't speak for them.
Okay.
I think that's where the conflict is, and you were mentioning.
That's
you were mentioning earlier in regards to like what surgeries do I need to look more of a woman, and in regards to this prompt, I believe that gender is identified and created by our Father in heaven. As you guys know, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and so therefore He identifies our gender, and gender is obvious in its plain and written word. But I also have had transgender tendencies. I didn't have the money to go through with the surgery or any testosterone, but I also struggled in regards to my gender, trying to meet a society and a culture to become a man was exhausting. And so it's like, what can I do to pump my body or chop up my body to become a man? That was exhausting for me. So freedom in regards to identity, I think that's why it's so sensitive. It's because there's actually, we all desire this freedom to express ourselves. Now, in regards to the social construct for as gender, a social construct, I believe that it influences the gender expression that we're seeing in society. And so where I think that the offense comes in is that if I'm asked to call a man a woman, I feel like I'm lying because I know, you're a man. And if you're a woman and I know you're a woman and you're trying to tell me to call you a guy, a man, now I feel like you're asking me to lie.
What do you think they're asking you to call you?
Them? No, not for anyone in specific. So I'm just saying, when you're asking me to identify you as a different gender from what you were created, and I know you're created that specific gender, like as a woman, and so like it makes it difficult for me. So it becomes a conflict. It becomes a conflict, but at the same time, like it's one of those things where it's actually like I just want you to know I see you and love you, and this whole like thing in regards to identity and what we're called and not called. It's like this. It's almost like we're just ready to fight.
But nobody needs
ready to be offended,
I just want to piggyback before you got into the like how we address people. I really want to touch on what you said about the financial aspect of like transitioning, and I think that like I almost transitioned when I was 19, and when I really started playing it out in my head, like I did not want to go through with it, and I think that's where I'm mentioning privilege in the aspect of gender. Gender is great, but anyways, that can be very exhausting for a lot of people, and I know so many people, and like a lot of people, whether or not they pass or not depends on if they had the resources to pull off what they were trying to do.
So you were trying to transition to look like a man. Is that what you're trying to do?
I wanted to for a little bit, and then I decided I was not going to do that because, well, also I think I don't know, I've never transitioned from male to female, but I think at the time it was a lot scarier for me to think about trying to be a man.
And the next prompt is, an experience from my past changed the way I viewed myself and my sexuality. So that's pretty much, sort of, kind of. Okay.
Okay, well, no, I don't have anything that, like, defined my sexuality. I mean, I like men, but I hope that there's more to me than that.
In terms of, like, when you grew up as a child, how did you get to where you are now?
It was a no-brainer for me. It was just, I always knew, and I always was aware who I was. And I feel like what it sounds like a lack of self-awareness on the side, turning into projection. Like, oh, this didn't work out for me, and it's y'all fault, and it's the movement's fault. But I think it's okay to, not everybody has they don't know who they are right away, and everybody has that privilege. So if you don't, that's okay too, but I don't think it's right to project that on others, like, oh, this is why. But no, I've always known who I was. It was never a question.
I've known that I liked girls since I was 4. This girl kissed me on the playground, and my mind was blown. But I grew up very religious and conservative, and so when my parents found out in high school, I got put in conversion therapy, which didn't work, and foster care, and then I was finally able to go to college and live my life. I tried to date a guy, and he stole my weed, and it was okay, not for me. And I've just been with girls ever since. But I know growing up, with older brothers and just single dad, and just kind of seeing how girls and boys were treated differently, it made me not like my own gender, which eventually I worked on and trying to work on.
Did you say you went to foster care?
Yes.
How did you end up in foster care?
I was 15 and my parents found out I had a girlfriend, and got physical, school noticed, like my face and stuff, cops. But it worked out for the best because that's the only reason I got to go to college. I become free, get away from like the conservative ideals, and like actually educate myself.
I'm sorry that happened.
It's okay. It was for the best.
Yeah,
and I talk to my
goes out
family
to
now,
you.
and we're close, and they're like accepting of me now, so it worked out.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone on the side?
Yeah, I could very much relate to your life story, like absolutely. That's been, except for the foster care part, but my parents did abandon me and leave me pretty much physically and emotionally. They just kind of kept a house, a roof over my head. But yeah, my heart goes out to you. That's very difficult, and you have such a story, a beautiful story. Yeah, and so I was the same in regards to like just, felt born gay and had this from the get-go an attraction to women. And so I just thought, man, I'm born gay. Like there's no other way. My whole family believed it. They supported me. They're like, yep, she's born gay, absolutely born gay. Huge tomboy, all these different things. And then started hearing the, I don't know if you'd call it gender ideology. I don't know if you'd call it gender dysphoria. I don't know what you call it, but started hearing about trans. And so I thought maybe I was like a man born in a woman's body. I even went to a doctor because I told her, like, I think I'm a man, but my body is saying something else. So can you take my blood work and do all the tests on me? And, because I need to know that I'm a man. And when she came back and said, you're 100% woman, it was devastating. I was like crying, like, what's wrong with me then? And so like my whole brain of thinking like, man, I'm a man born in a woman's body. I need to transition my body to become a man. Like what's going on here? But my experience was very different. I hated Jesus, hated Christians. I thought the Bible was full of dictatorship and fairy tales. I wanted nothing to do with it. I couldn't stand religious people. And I was living my life just fine. And I had a radical encounter with Jesus. And I met Jesus, who is love. And, man, the fear of the Lord hit me, and I didn't realize it was him. And I just said, Lord Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Be the Lord and Savior of my life. And Holy Spirit, make me new. And I was no longer born again, but became born as a new creation. And I did not ever hear about anyone ever getting delivered from homosexuality or transgender. And 6 months later, God showed me he's the great I am. And I am who I am. I'm the great I am. And you are who you are. You look just like me. And the Lord just shifted this whole idea and all this effort of trying to become something. I just get to be a daughter of the Most High King. And all of a sudden, my identity just came into a solid ground. And so like just talking in regards to the different shifts of social identity, of gender, all these things, it's exhausting. But this place of knowing who I am and accepting and receiving who I am created to be has been the most freeing for me. So I would say there's many things in regards to my past that have affected who I am today, but it's been definitely a journey of coming from one end of the spectrum to like all of a sudden, how do you become this radical woman of God, believing all the Word of God other than the Spirit of God who made me new? And so in regards to my identity today, I would say that I identify with what the Word of God says who I am and who my Father in heaven says who I am. And that's what I identify, and that's where I've become who I am today.
I want to say, like, I'm also a Christian, but without even giving that Christian explanation, like from a secular approach, it's why do I have to pay so much money to conform? Like going back to the being misgendered and all that stuff, that shaped how I saw myself. I always saw myself as inadequate. I'm not enough of a woman. I don't belong. I'm not good enough, Why does anyone have to feel that way, And if you don't have like $25,000 or you don't want to commit 2 years plus to this lifelong journey that I think becomes all encompassing. And it's like, I've seen people once they're transitioning, it's like that's the sole like center of their life is their transition. I think that's sad. I think there's so much more to life. There's so many more avenues of existence and being human. I'm sorry?
Because you're not trans, that's why.
Well, but I chose not to be trans is what I'm saying because I did not.
But trans is not a choice. It's not a
so
choice.
I disagree.
You can choose to transition, but you don't choose to be trans.
I think you do.
No, because it's something, it's how you're born.
So I think that's where both sides truly differ because your experiences are different. And I think you're settled in how you feel based on your experiences, but they also have different experiences saying that that's not true. But I would like to hear from you.
So on my whole journey, the reason why I said I agree is because I actually got exposed to, in a very negative light, of what being trans was when I was 4 years old. saw a trans woman on TV. She did not, very pass much. And I was with
sorry,
my
she didn't
grandmother.
what?
She didn't pass very much.
Okay.
I was with my grandmother. I said, Grandma, is that a boy or girl? She said, it isn't it, and that's all it will be. And I said, oh, well, okay. So that was my introduction to trans people. Later on, however, even from very young, whenever I thought of myself, whenever I thought of my future, I thought of a girl. I thought of little girls. I thought, I never had girl interests. I mean, occasionally, yeah, like I played video games, but I always picked girls and stuff like that. But that doesn't make someone trans. That's not even a sign. The reason to bring that up is just because to talk about that has nothing to do with being trans. Like, again, gender expression versus true gender. And as I kind of grew older, I told kids in school that, like, I was a girl. And originally I did that because I was told, again, about the whole boys can't be with boys. And eventually, as I got older, I did come out as just gay. And I was gay for a while, but I noticed I've always had these gigantic insecurities about this or that, this or that, this or that, about my body, about my face and everything like that. And everyone always told me how attractive I was. I even had, fellow gay boys telling me that I was really, that I was hot and stuff like that. And, I was around 17. Around 16, I got my first job, and I started dressing a lot more femme because I was able to pick my own clothes out. And around 17, I was just kind of like looking at myself, and I was picking apart what I didn't like about myself. And it was the fact that I read as male. It was the fact that I was a guy. It was the fact that, like, people would see me and say, like, that's a guy. Whenever I thought of myself and my imperfections, it was the fact that they were male traits, male qualities. And so from there, it just made a very logical sense to be like, well, you know what? Like, if I'm already dressing this way, if I'm already, like, feeling this way, like, I'm going to transition. Like, this is going to be what's best for me, because at the end of the day, that's exactly how it was. And when you say being trans is a choice, it's exactly like she said, transitioning is a choice for sure. But being trans really isn't, because, again, it brings it back to the entire fact that neurologically, yes, our brain structure is very different from birth. Having gender dysphoria is not something that you can opt in or out of. And not everyone who is gay or experiences that experiences gender dysphoria.
So where you are now, feeling like that was what was missing for you, right? Like the fact that you felt like a boy, or were perceived as a boy, when that's not how you felt on the inside.
Because I realized the times when I felt the happiest, when I felt the most comfortable in myself and my appearance, was when people genuinely assumed I was a girl. And when someone, it wasn't when someone was like, oh, do you go by she, her? No, it was like someone being like, oh, she, her. Or like even someone being like, oh, I thought you were a girl. I noticed, like, that is what made me happy. That is what, like, I was like, was the only time I ever felt like, oh, wow, like, I feel confident in myself. Even at my heaviest weight, when I was 180 pounds, I was, every now and then someone would assume I was a girl. And that was what genuinely lightened my life. It's what helped my insecurities.
So do you feel like you have peace now with with how you look and how you are perceived?
Once I'm at a point where, like, I'm passable, I'm stealth, it's like, that's just gonna kind of be like, of course, dysphoria is never gonna go away. It is a lifelong thing, but it's either that or I just hate myself 24/7 all day, every day. So I don't really think I have a choice in that matter if I want to live a normal life. So,
and I think I get where you're coming from, where, like, you've had a different experience where you've changed over time and now you feel confident you look very confident being a woman, being identified and recognized as a woman by society. And I think that the unfortunate part is that you experience the complete pendulum swing from, like, well, you have the hateful people who are like, you'll always be a man, like, you'll never be a real woman, like, and their goal is just to be right and to hurt other people. But I think it seems like you experience the opposite end of that pendulum, where it seems like you were influenced to believe that you were trans, even if you were or weren't or whatever. I can't speak for what your true identity is, because I don't believe in, like, there being some objective fact about that or whatever. But I think that that's a fringe minority. I don't think that anyone on this side would agree that you should have been told growing up, you might be a boy, like, because you like, blue and trucks and whatever. Like, I don't think any of us agree that that should have been the case, that you should have felt pressured into that either way. But I think that's a minority, and I think it's made out to be the whole LGBTQ plus community. I think that's the problem, is it's in the effort to protect trans people and non-gender conforming people, for some minority of our side, it's become like a thing that we should try to normalize for everybody. And it's just not the norm or right for everybody.
I guess to sum it up, I was really sick and tired of being tormented by my desires.
Well, now that you say that, I do want to know how that switch happened, because you said you're married now, so you kind of completely let it go.
I've always been interested in the meaning of life and truth, and I kind of see my homosexual journey as me learning how to love myself physically, because I didn't know what all came with me. I never really cared about what I liked. I never thought I was worth that time, but I was so interested in what other women wanted and what they liked. And I remember this point at the end of my homosexual lifestyle. I started to see how predatory I was, because I would have to hunt women, see if they're gay, see if they would get down, and see if I could turn her out, something. Or I would also see how eager I was to take care of her, and how I would want to do things for her and pick her up and drive and all this stuff and provide and stuff. And then I started to realize, oh, this is what I want for me. Just one day it just kind of opened. And I don't know, I just started realizing that, because I've always been about truth, but sometimes you have to fall into things to learn. Sometimes you got to learn the hard way, as my father would say. And so I remember asking this question. I just came before God, and I hadn't talked to God in years, and I was like, why is this harmful? Why is being gay harmful? It's not harmful. Why? And I think the word that stuck with me is what are you doing it for? What's your life gonna look like when you're 50? It's you're committing suicide to the human race. You know what I mean? You're not continuing your lineage. You're not thinking about something that's bigger than you. You have to have children. You gotta, you gotta live up to that. That's what this whole plan is about. So I was like, well, I don't know how to let this go. I don't know how to let this go. And I don't want to ever come out. I think that was the hardest thing, is having to come out and deal with people on that side telling me that, oh no, you're not. Or people on this side, so I was like, you know what, fuck that. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna tell you when I'm straight. I'm not gonna tell you when I'm gay. I'm never gonna answer that question, ever. And I'll never will. And I just kept to myself, and I kept seeking, and I was just like, okay, how do I become a woman that's worthy of being a wife then? I don't have to be with a fucked up husband. I can have a good husband if I want one. Maybe the man that I think is perfect will come for me. And in 6 months he did.